Today's nutritional landscape can feel like the Wild West. There are tons of fad diets that come out and they work for some people and don't for others. And are you one of those people that feels like they've tried everything and still haven't seen any results? Well, it could do with body constitution, or at least that's my training background, or it could be due to the fact that you're not eating for the right metabolic type. Join me this week as I sit down with Dr. Mathur and we talk about what metabolic typing is and why this might be the way for you to find the kind of eating habits that support you best.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life.
Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am overjoyed to be joined today by Dr. Mathur. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me here.
So we started having a really great conversation and I was like, I have to hit record. So we were talking about traditional medicine and ancient traditions. And we had this really beautiful exchange around the synergy of all of that. And it's one of the reasons that I definitely wanted to have her on the show. So if you could share with our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in New Delhi, India, and I went to medical school there. Unfortunately, even though I was raised with at least 3 different types of traditional medicine. So not only there was Ayurvedic clinics where I lived, there was homeopathic clinics, and then there was traditional, conventional Western medicine. So we had, as kids growing up, we had the choices. My mom would give us a choice. Okay, you want to get sweet little pills to eat, which is homeopathy, or you want like a really bitter tasting. At that time, it was more like the bitter tasting, some kind of tinctures and things like that. Or you just get traditional Western drugs, medications. So as a kid, and because there is not much scientific evidence of homeopathy or of Ayurvedic traditional science, because there was no real studies or anything like that available. So I kind of poo-pooed it when I was growing up. I'm sorry to say I did. And I actually ended up in a Western, medical school and became an MD. But then coming full circle now, after experiencing the Western medicine for a few years, not only for myself, but also my patients, and I realized that this is really a yo-yo circle. It's sort of, what you're doing is you're managing the symptoms of a patient. You're not doing anything in the direction of resolving the issue once for all. And that is not the purpose of a medical doctor. So I finally learned that and realized that that's what I was doing, and that's what I was seeing in my practice every day, patients being managed. And then eventually it just happened that I myself got into the situation where I needed help in improving my own health. And since it was about me, I had to really dig deeper and going to the mainstream doctors to figure out something is going on or not. I obviously got a standard answer of nothing is wrong with you. All your tests are normal. So kind of go figure.
Oh, so
So,
many people hear that.
and because I'm a medical doctor, I said, okay, we did all the testing that I knew of at that time. And obviously, all the testing was normal. And it was kind of, I was perplexed because there wasn't any answer. So I realized that I have to go outside the traditional conventional medicine and to get the real answers. So I started investigating, researching, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. And at that time, when I was looking for the answers, I got an invitation to one of the anti aging seminars in Beverly Hills by a Belgium doctor from Belgium, Dr. Terry Hertog. And he was the third generation, I think he's a third generation endocrinologist. And then from there on was a journey that my feet got put on because I saw that the doctors that were attending the seminar were super excited. And they looked like vibrant and energetic and enthusiastic. And I was like, this is different than what I have been exposed to previously. And then the rest is history. I was totally into it. And I'm like, what is this? And I learned about bioidentical hormone replacement therapies. And even before that, I was into nutrition. And I wanted to find out if I could find the ideal human diet that could resolve the nutritional requirements. Like, how do you figure out what is the ideal diet for a human being? Because there were so many different theories. There is like one nutritionist is like, swearing by a particular thing to, oh, you should be eating plant-based diet, for example. On the other extreme, there is a carnivore diet. So,
Right.
so people get so confused, including myself. I was super confused about what is the right nutrition for an individual person. And so that's where my journey began. And I was literally testing out each diet myself. And I was doing that frequently to figure out, what is the right diet until I came upon this diet called metabolic typing. It has been poo-pooed over there, even with the nutritionist. They don't agree on. In fact, there is a lot of studies that they can show with regards to even keto diet, for example. There's a ton of studies that say the keto diets, they can improve diabetes, blood sugar metabolism. They can help you lose extra fat, can for obesity and this, the other thing. But in general, when you look at it, and if you really put everybody on the keto diet, that doesn't work. It does not work. Even literally myself, and I said, okay, let me do this. And you do that, and you feel so sick because it's the wrong diet for you.
Yeah.
And so, my journey began and realized that in the medical school, the amount of education that we get as MDs regarding nutrition, can you take a guess of how many hours that would be?
Oh, it's not many. One class, maybe.
Yeah, it's about 3 hours.
Wow, it's even less than I thought.
Yeah, it's just anti-diabetic diet. It's called ADA diet, and that's the only diet I learned about. And maybe, kidney failure, renal failure, some kind of that kind of diet. But there's no real education on nutrition. So I had to literally start from scratch, to figure out why there is so much differences in opinion about what is the correct diet for a human. Dr. Weston Price did a lot of research in the area of nutrition. I really respected his research. He went to all different parts of the world to figure out what people are doing. And it is only logical. If you really think logically, it is only logical to realize that the man would eat what is available. It's only what are you going to do? Unless now in the modern world, because there is so much better transportation and preservation, that you can find any kind of food anywhere at any time. It doesn't matter what season it is. So things have kind of amalgamated. The boundaries are completely blurred. There is no boundary because you can eat any food at any time. And so that's the problem. This is a confusion we have. Even though the bodies that we are carrying around have thousands of years of genetic material that is already been programmed certain way. But the environment has changed so much that there is so much confusion about nutrition. So this is why I ended up with this thing called metabolic typing that was originated by Dr. Donald Kelly in the 1970s. And that was pretty logical to me to realize that you have to find out for yourself what is the right diet for you. So it's not the one size fits all, because it never works. Different parts of the world eat differently. And there is blue zones on the planet. There is places where people live the longest. And then what are they doing? I mean, besides, like you mentioned earlier in our conversation, that there is ancient traditional wisdom of being in a rhythm with the nature. That is really key. And to be a part of the community where you are participating for the well-being of all concerned will also play a role in your health. So I totally admire that you are in this field and you're bringing people's focus back into the traditions, into our own body biological rhythms. You are into the rhythm, you are in sync with the rest of the world, that your chances for you to be healthy is much higher.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is something that is a very foreign concept for a lot of people. And it makes sense. Since the Industrial Revolution, we have lighting inside that changes our circadian rhythm. We're able to work at all different times, whereas before, our workday started when the sun came up, and then when the sun went down, so you worked longer days during part of the year, and it was shorter days during other parts of the year, right? And so, we have seasons outside the window. We have seasons in our body. We have seasons in our life. Whether we're cycling bleeding bodies or not, there are all of these seasonal cycles that are taking place. And we really have lost touch with those rhythms, those natural rhythms, and our connection to nature, quite frankly. And because of that, the further afield from nature we get, the sicker as a population we get. And I'm really interested in this metabolic typing aspect because my foundational knowledge is actually in Chinese nutritional therapy. And I look at the body in terms of body constitution. So whether somebody has a little more heat in their system or a little more cold in their system. And the whole idea of Chinese nutritional therapy is to create harmony and balance, right? So anybody who's familiar with the concept of yin and yang, for example, maybe it was a necklace you wore back when you were in high school that had the black and the white with the dot on either side, right? So that's the visual representation of it that people are often very familiar with. But the whole concept of the medicine is about creating a balance in the elemental system in the body so that you have optimal health. Ayurvedic tradition is very similar. You have an excess or not enough of one of the elements, and you're working on balancing vata, kapha, and pitta. So when you look at it from a metabolic standpoint, what are you looking for? Because this is a fascinating concept for me.
Oh, I see. Yes. So metabolic typing originally with Dr. Kelly, he looked at the autonomic nervous system, right? The part of the nervous system that is autonomic, which means literally you can even call it automatic because you're not controlling it. Like intentionally, you're not, even though you could, but you don't have to because it works automatically. So there is two parts to the autonomic nervous system. One is sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. So you either stand and you handle the danger or you run away. So the sympathetic nervous system helps you handle with situations that are urgent. So it's a sympathetic. This is the one that drives you to work every day. So if your sympathetic wasn't working very well, you wouldn't have the drive or the ambition to do some things. So you do need sympathetic nervous system to live your life. Then the yin and yang of that, the other part of that is the parasympathetic. So the parasympathetic is the part of the nervous system that is rest and digest, right? And repair, right? So basically, after you have a meal, people want to rest. I mean, traditionally in Europe, there is siesta in the afternoon, where you eat and you kind of chill for an hour, 2 hours, and then you go back to work and then you work later hours. In Europe, there is, definitely it's acceptable and it is accepted that people are going to rest in the afternoon and then they're going to go back to work and they work later, like not until 6, but they work until 8 or 9. So then they can get a full day of work. But that system that we need, like when you're sleeping, you are using your parasympathetic nervous system to repair, rest, and digest the meal that you had eaten, right?
And now a word from our Reproductive Rebel sponsor, Embody Space. Your cycle holds wisdom, and the Embody Space cycle tracking app helps you unlock it. Track your cycle in the only fully encrypted app designed to protect your most sacred data. Get daily guidance tailored to every phase, from bleeding to blooming, with rituals, herbs, lifestyle tips, dietary support, and more, all tailored for your body's natural rhythms, because your body's story is yours alone. Embody Space, your private portal to cycle wisdom. Download now and reclaim your rhythm. And now, back to the show.
So in some people, what Dr. Kelly found out that there's some people, either one or the other is dominant. That means it's more dominant, more active than the other one. And even that will even shape or at least jibe with the kind of personality you have. There's people that are type A personalities, right? They're always on the go, and they drive. They have a lot of drive, and they're very ambitious. And so a lot of times the system that are dominant is sympathetic nervous system. So they want to be, they're high achievers, and they're short fuses, their fuses are short. And they want to just kind of get things done and drive things forward. The parasympathetic guys, if you look at them, even physically, but it affects the mental because they're very closely connected. And they are kind of laid back, they will get things done, but they are not like as rushed, for example. I'm just kind of comparing for you just the mental changes as well based on the autonomic nervous system dominance. And then there's people that are kind of balanced. They're not one or the other dominant. They're just more like a balanced person. Mm-hmm. And so they are called, they're balanced. They're called autonomically, they're balanced. So this is what originally metabolic typing was based on. And what Dr. Kelly found out is that the people who are sympathetic dominant literally are the people that need more vegetarian, not only vegetarian, but vegetables, fruits, more dominantly carbohydrate diet. So the other confusion people have is that they think all carbohydrates are bad. Some people have an idea that, well, carbs are bad for me. But what they don't know is that good carbs are good for you and the bad carbs are bad for you. And when you say bad carb, it means something that's super processed, super refined. So if you refine some food, it ends up with nothing but powdery, sticky, and very white, because everything has been removed in terms of any kind of, like rice. You process the rice, it becomes white, and there is no bran on it. There's no fiber on it. That's the bad carbohydrate. Mm-hmm. Even sugar that's processed, it's very bad carbohydrate. But if you're eating fruits as a whole, the whole fruit has fiber in it. So it doesn't absorb the sugar as fast as the food that's processed, and it's literally converts into sugar. The body, the moment you put it in your mouth, it melts. And that melt is basically converting it into sugar. And so that's the bad carbohydrates. I think it's just in general, people don't get that clearly. Even though they have been told many times, don't eat processed food, but they don't know what that processed food is.
Yes, absolutely. I recommend my clients walk around the outer edges of the grocery store, because that's the easiest way to explain, this is how you know it's not processed.
That's right. It's not packaged, in a bottle or plastic bag or something like this. If it is fresh, if you can see it is a food that you can see, recognize the name of the food, it's natural and it's not processed as much as something else could. I mean, not that there's any food that's not processed. I think everything is processed in today's world. Literally everything is processed. But there's an amount of processing. How much processing has been done? You kind of want to keep it at the minimum. So
Yes.
that's the difference, between the bad carbohydrates and the good carbohydrates.
So you said that there is a way to eat for a sympathetic system dominant person, a parasympathetic dominant person, and a balanced person. Can you give a couple of examples of each of these just to kind of give people an idea? Because, when I look at things constitutionally, I have a client, for example, who is very plant-based, but needs to have more animal product influence. And I have the reverse. I've seen people come in that are keto and can't figure out why they're spotting at inappropriate times during their cycle, but it has to do with this good carbs situation. They need to have carbs. They're doing keto, so they're really not. And they need more of those healthy carbs in order to have the proper balance. So if you could give just a little bit of an example of foods that would fall or types of eating that would fall into each of these three categories.
Yeah, for sure. So I started with the sympathetic to tell you that the sympathetic person basically needs healthy carbohydrates mainly. In fact, the rough approximate, because metabolic typing is really telling you the macronutrient ratios. Okay? So it's macronutrient ratios between the carbs and the proteins and the fats. Like how much carbs now, literally, like I said, I'm not advising anybody particularly, but in general, when you are doing a sympathetic kind of diet, which is more like carbohydrate dominated diet, then you're eating more like 60% of your meal would be coming from fruits, vegetables, and grains, right? Grains, when I say grain, people are like, wow, I can eat all the grains. No, you can eat the grains, but not the really processed one. So, like quinoa, let's say, for example, quinoa, it's fantastic grain. So you can eat that. Even rice. So if you like rice, grain. Brown rice, not much processed, or black rice, not much processed, great. So things like that, you can have that. Then the other 40% would be your proteins. Now, the sympathetic person doesn't need much fats. They don't need much fats. So please don't eat fats if you feel like you're sympathetic. So you're going to eat maybe some proteins. So you can have different ways of eating protein. You can have beans, you can have legumes, or you can have white meat or any kind of chicken, turkey, fish is fine, but not fatty type. So not a fatty cut of meat. Not good for you. So you're not going to have much fat. Maybe a little bit, 10, 20, 10, 15%, 20%. And the other is from the protein. So you can decide. So if you are, let's say, Indian and you are vegetarian and you don't want to eat any meat, great, no problem. So, but on the other hand, you cannot have too much fat. So the fat has to be minimized. Like you can't eat a lot of ghee, for example. Yeah. So you can have a little bit of it, which is present in most foods, but not a lot. And then let's go over to parasympathetic. The parasympathetic is the opposite. So parasympathetic person needs a higher content of fat and animal protein. For example, it's going to be hard for a vegetarian to be a parasympathetic, but they can be. They can be. I've treated patients like that who were Indians and they were religiously like vegetarians. So I had to treat them with other things, but they were able to do the diet. But the concept is that your parasympathetic will need more fats and proteins and less healthy carbohydrates. So in other words, sometimes I even counsel the patients to start only with fats and proteins. Just remove all carbs for a few days, for example. So when you're starting the diet, do that for a few days until you feel like, wow, I can't do this anymore. And that's when you start adding the vegetables. And the vegetables is going to be also with just a little bit, and you keep adding more until you feel like, okay, this is the right ratio for me.
Oh, wow.
So you're like really fine tuning it for every person is going to be different from one parasympathetic to the next. So it's very super personalized to that person,
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
isn't it?
So, how does one know whether they are more dominant? You were talking about being very driven, like work-wise and things like that. And I know that there are people listening to this going, well, I can be driven sometimes and I can be organized sometimes, but I don't always get really anxious about it, like maybe somebody who swings a little harder in that direction.
Now, the mental attitudes and only one part of it. It's not the main reason. I was just giving you examples of the
Yep.
traits of times. It doesn't mean that's if you are driven, then you are sympathetic. No. There is many different physical and mental aspects of determining the metabolic type. So if you fall in the middle, that means you're balanced, then you have to eat balanced diet. And the balance is also very interesting because you can be a vegetarian and be a balanced diet. But then you have to kind of really be mindful of how much protein, how much fats, and how much carbohydrates you're eating. And in the balanced type, it's very important to rotate the foods. So if you eat the same foods every day, you're not going to respond very well to the food. People kind of gravitate because of our lifestyles. I used to be like that, just the same food every day, and I don't really complain. Then once I became balanced, then I had to pay attention. Okay, I need to rotate the foods. So you can't eat the same foods every day.
Interesting. Very interesting. I've always been drawn to keeping things interesting when it comes to my diet. So I find that really fascinating, actually. So if somebody wanted to get started looking into this kind of, I'm going to call it an eating practice,
Sure.
informing themselves around, which way does my body tend to lean and how can I support myself best? How would you recommend a person get started?
They can definitely go and do the metabolic typing. They can find out. We do a questionnaire. It's a very detailed questionnaire. And then we also do a hair test. And then we also do one of the tests, I think it's very important. It's a blood test that we do for food sensitivities. Because
Oh,
people have developed so much food sensitivity with today's, like you said, the industrialized nation, as we have grown in last 200 years. People have developed allergies. So unless you find out what it is that you're allergic to, even if you eat the right food, you are going to be not feeling healthy. And so we do the blood test. So then we have a full picture of what exactly is going on for you. The way I present it to the patients so they understand is that there's two sides of the equation. One is that you want to know what you should not be eating for certain, not just some kind of guesswork. It's more like what you shouldn't be eating. And the other side of the equation is what should you be eating? And those are very different parts of the equation because you can be told, okay, don't eat this, don't eat that. But then other thousands of things that you could be eating that are wrong for you.
right.
And so this is why we want to narrow and really focus exactly into what it is that your body needs. So it's very cool. And then if you do that, you are not going to go wrong. You're not going to be going on the wrong direction at all. So this is why we are certain that you're going to get the results with nutrition. Because nutrition has become so complicated.
That is
So
very true.
complicated. Yeah. So complicated. It's just mind-boggling. So I give them that concept of, let's not eat what you are allergic to, and then let's eat what is right for you. And then from there, you fine tune exactly to what your body needs.
I love that. So if you have somebody who, let's say they come to you and they are type 2 and you go through this whole process, do you customize for the type 2 and their metabolic persona, or do you feel that tailoring the diet to their metabolic persona then solves part of the type 2. Do you see what I'm saying? Like chicken and egg, which one do you think is the better approach?
I think you got it. You got it. If you apply the right nutrition to the body, guess what happens?
The boat writes itself. That's how I look at it too, but that's not the way everybody looks at it.
Yeah, they just need to understand the concepts. And the funny thing is that people say, oh, coconut is, or whatever, pineapple is really bad for you or something. But the concept with metabolic typing is that there is no food that's bad for anyone. You need to find out what's the bad food for you.
That's it.
It's not the food that's bad. It's the body, how it handles that food that you need to find out. So there is no food that's bad except the one that's very processed. That I can assure you is not good for anyone.
It's not really food at that point.
Oh, exactly. You said it. You said it perfectly. It's not food. It's food-like.
Yes.
Yeah. It looks like food, and it smells like food. Maybe it tastes plastic, but, it covers up all the other flavors, covers it up, but it's not food. It's food-like. And I think it's like a Frankenstein kind of thing happening in the food industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if somebody wanted to work with you, how could they get started?
Yes. So you can go to the website called angellongevity.com. And then you can contact us through that website.
Beautiful. That will all be in the show notes. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I would just say don't eat sugar and eliminate all processed food.
I love that. All right. You heard it from the doctor, everybody. No sugar and processed foods. So we will have all of your contact information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. I think this is a really fascinating concept and one that there isn't a lot of awareness around, even in all of the wellness circles that I travel in. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is this is the first time I've really heard anyone talk about this. So I'm so grateful that you shared your time and expertise with our audience today. And I will make sure that people know how to get in touch with you because I think this is a really cool concept.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at MoonEssenceMe on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.